This is the SES Defender of Freedom uploading data log for day 35, for day 70, days 100, for days 127, days 158, the weeks of days 173, log for days 223, 278 through 284, 303 to 311 of the Second Galactic War. Data Archive, we are sending an emergency transmission of receipt of new major orders from High Command. Networks of termicide dispensing towers have now been set up across each planet in the Umlaut sector. Helldivers are being requested to deploy to these planets to fully activate the terminated control systems. Once these systems are in place, it will be ensured that there will be no future infestations on these planets. The completion of the TCS in Fenrir 3 is nothing short but incredible. In 6 hours, the completion status was increased by 41.8%. This progress made in 6 hours is greater than the progress made in all of day 34. With the terminated shut down for good in Fenrir 3, it looks like the Helldivers are looking next, deterring. Completion would increase by 39.48% in the first half of the day, with more and more super destroyers deploying deterring to assist by the hour. And under 4 hours later, the TCS was complete in Turing, increasing the completion by 31% in 3.5 hours. Despite forces being split between Meridia and Heath, the completion was increased by 53% in just over 12 hours. The terminated surprise attack on Heath would ultimately fail pathetically and remain under Super Earth control. In the next 4 hours, the terminated control systems would complete in Meridia. This would then begin the final push and rally in Errata Prime. And what is likely the greatest feat by the Helldivers so far, Errata Prime was completed before the end of day 37. Looking at the next 12 hours in more detail, once the defense of Heath was completed, Meridia received significant reinforcements, essentially doubling the presence to complete the installation of the TCS in 3 hours. With Errata Prime being the only planet left to set up the terminated control systems, the combined might of the Helldivers would arrive in Errata Prime in the last 9 hours of the day, reaching a peak of 367,000 super destroyers deployed. Even with increased terminated resistance, completion would be increased by 100%, simultaneously completing the major order by High Command and having the fastest TCS completion to date. With all 4 terminated control systems completely set up, the Umlaut sector is now firmly in Super Earth control. As democracy never rests, the new major order, Operation Swift Disassembly, would commence. The major order is of a scale that the Helldivers have not seen before, calling for the complete eradication of the automatons. Using the unpleasant sensory experience simulation downloads, which were tested on Helldivers to be both humane and safe, we uncovered automaton plans for a massive invasion called the Reclamation. Phase 1 of this operation is to disrupt communications. Troost has been found to play a key role in discovering some new critical intelligence about the bot's plans. We are overjoyed to report that the Trigon sector is now under Super Earth control. Phase 2 of Operation Swift Disassembly is to reduce non-sentient combatant production. The Helldiver intelligence has completed intel analysis from Troost to find that Tibet in the Severn sector is the heaviest producer of these socialist bots. However, the automatons launched a counter-offensive in Dropnir. After 15 hours into day 52, control over Dropnir was lost and the liberation rate of Ubanea reached 95%. We were unable to gain control over Ubanea before losing access to it. After 9 hours of hard fighting against the automatons in Tibet, the Helldivers reached 30% liberation and failed to complete the major order in time. Shortly after, new major orders were issued by High Command. Too many Helldivers have been lost in Malevolent Creek. It has finally become time to take this planet back. The major order was delivered to take vengeance for the fallen, honor our heroes, and liberate Malevolent Creek. The battles on this planet have gone on for long enough, and D-54 heralded the end at last. Helldivers who had already spent weeks on the front were swiftly aided by Helldivers that have been split across other planets in the Severn sector, resulting in an unprecedented victory for Super Earth. The major order was the fastest ever completed, reaching full liberation within 5 hours. Today is now officially Malevolent Creek Memorial Day. High Command has announced that in remembrance, all Super Earth citizens will unite for a full 3 minutes of their lunch break in remembrance of those who gave their lives to free Malevolent Creek. All Helldivers were also issued a special commemorative cape for our comrades who have fallen in the creek. In their meager efforts at a counteroffensive, the automatons attacked both Ubanea and Malevolent Creek in the early hours of the day. After the countless lives that have been lost in its liberation efforts over the course of the war, a swift defense was completed by 1300 hours into day 55. The bots weren't even close. The fourth and final phase of Operation Swift Disassembly: Annihilation. The time is nigh and all Helldivers have been ordered to make an all-out push to destroy the Automaton Legion. Intel on bot communications has shown that the Toasters are still referencing the Reclamation, and it seems that they will still proceed with their planned attack against managed democracy. All automatons must be shut down before they can proceed with their socialist plan. We must destroy the automatons at any cost. The automatons no longer have the resources to attack our planets. They are cornered. Bot eradication must be seen through on Maya, Durgan, and Tibet. We should expect significant resistance on these planets as they desperately try to stave off their inevitable annihilation. By the end of the day, we saw the liberation of Tibet, leaving one final planet on the automaton front. We are approaching the end of Operation Swift Disassembly. These heartless bots have murdered innocent families and countless Helldivers over the course of the Galactic War. They are emotionless and incapable of processing the loss that Super-Earth citizens feel in the wake of their path of destruction. They have threatened our way of life. We have been fighting the automatons for almost 60 days, facing great difficulty against their relentless attacks against democracy. Too many have lost their lives at the hands of the automatons. But now we are approaching the end of their brutality. We have seen enough death and will finally stomp this scrap metal out of existence. We began by taking back the Trigon sector, a seemingly hopeless front. Our supreme intelligence implemented new weaponry that specifically countered their weak points. We spent days breaking into the Severance sector with back and forth defenses until we finally broke through in Illuminate. The long-awaited liberation of Malevolent Creek followed, avenging our fallen comrades. We are nearing the end of the final phase of Operation Swift Disassembly. We have Maya, we have Tibet, we have them cornered in Durgan. There is but one thing left to do, Data Archive. Save our citizens. Save managed democracy. Annihilate the automaton threat, once and for all. As we progressed through the day, the automatons were losing significant ground, with their new fabrications proving to be child's play for the Helldivers. It almost seemed as though they could sense fear as their end drew ever closer. Despite the challenging conditions on Durgan, the species with the right to vote came out on top. Durgan was liberated shortly after 1500 hours on day 60, seeing the highest number of superdestroyers ever deployed to an automaton planet, reaching over 367,000, making this by far the most effective liberation on the automaton front. The millions of heroic fallen Helldivers have been avenged with the shutdown of the glorified appliances, and Super-Earth citizens can rest peacefully in safety once again. The Reclamation has been prevented. Sincere congratulations and thanks have been extended to our Helldivers for their efforts on the battlefield. High Command has indicated that out of an abundance of caution, SEF teams will continue to search for bot facilities and servers for additional intelligence. But certainly the bots don't have anything else up their sleeve. Did or even wear sleeves. Wait a minute, Data Archive. LibCon 1? What is this? Oh, sweet liberty. Data Archive, we are receiving an emergency LibCon 1 notice. Data Archive, by this time, you are familiar that the Federation has come under attack. The automaton's defeat was but a ploy, and the Reclamation has come to pass. Multiple planets have fallen in the Valdis sector. High Command has shared that a massive automaton invasion fleet arrived from FTL Jump to the Valdis sector and nearly overran every planet in mere hours. The bots attacked our communications networks, which is why we were not able to respond to the attack. Our next major order is to save as many planets as possible. With the anticipated loss of Menkent and Mentar Bay, we can expect future attacks by our electronic adversaries on Martale, Marfark, and Vernon Wells again. High Command has issued a new major order, with a new coordinated defense strategy that will work better to focus our fleet against our electronic adversaries. Instead of spreading our numbers out too thin, we are ordered to focus on the liberation of Menkent and Lazath, coined the Menkent Line. Holding these planets will give our SEF engineers the ability to implement orbital defense countermeasures against our enemies to fend off their attacks. This is a necessary strategic move to prevent the automatons from reaching even deeper in our territory with their cowardly attacks. It was decided by the Helldivers that the majority would focus on completing the liberation of the South, while a smaller force would hold in Menkent until reinforcements could arrive. The brave Helldivers in Menkent held valiantly against a greater number of the attacking Automaton Legion. Their job was to hold off the attack at all costs. Reinforcements would surely arrive, but the Automatons must not break through. In the South, the liberation of the planet was at 84%, and the objective was to close out this liberation as quickly as possible to reinforce Menkent. It could not be denied. This plan was working, and over the next 4 hours, the Automatons completely lost control over the South, with the Helldivers in Menkent barely holding on. Following the liberation of the South, Helldivers rallied back to reinforce the defense of Menkent, over doubling the superdestroyers deployed on the scorching planet. Despite a reluctance to deploy on a planet with such unfavorable environmental conditions, the perseverance of the Helldivers is unmatched, their efforts not in vain. The arrival of the reinforcements turned the defense heavily in Super Earth's favor. The bots could not compute this defeat. The Toasters' cowardly attempt at breaking the Menkent line was pathetic and easily repelled by the Helldivers in the early hours of Day 68. With a nice completion of the Menkent line on Day 69, we've ensured the setup of our orbital defenses. In addition, Vernon Wells has been established as a forward base for Super Earth on the front for all operations against the Automatons. It will be the center of our stronghold as we establish ourselves to push back the Socialist Toasters. With the liberation of Marfark successfully completed on Day 70, Helldivers can breathe a sigh of relief, as we now have a robust defense line secured completely around our headquarters in Vernon Wells. It seems that we have found the least strong area of our very strong orbital defense measures surrounding the Menkent line. A large portion of the appliances were destroyed by our orbital defenses before they brute forced their way through it and reached Lasath. It is my understanding that the engineers responsible for this vulnerability in the line have been taken into custody for potential dissident behavior. On the Automaton front, with the majority of Helldivers fighting the Terminids, all 3 defenses failed. The biggest loss was in Lasath, as it breaks our hard-earned Menkent line. After the defense, there were 8 hours remaining to defend other planets, and Helldivers from Astanu were given the option to reinforce and defend our forward base operations on the Automaton front in Vernon Wells, or defend the Terminid farms in Foray Prime.
Our forward base of operations against the Reclamation.
Terminid farms. This resulted in the fall of our forward base. Despite the efforts of the Helldivers in Vernon Wells, the new headquarters had to be abandoned following the failed defense. A new major order was announced, Operation Legitimate Undertaking. The purpose of this major order is to counterattack the massive automaton attacks we've been victim to. Phase 1 is Citizen Rescue. 2 planets in particular hold experimental weapons manufacturing plants that are of utmost importance to our war efforts. Penta, which holds the research on the experimental airburst rocket launcher, or Chuhe, which would unlock the development of anti-tank mine emplacements. However, only the first of the 2 liberated planets will result in the retrieval of our lost weaponry and civilians. Following the liberation, the RL-77 airburst rocket launcher was authorized for requisition on Helldiver superdestroyers. It seems the power level of this new weapon is still a bit unmanageable. Many Helldiver squad mates have been lost due to the misfiring of this extremely powerful weapon. The Ministry of Defense has emphasized that this weapon is still in its experimental stages. Unfortunately, it was too little too late to fully liberate both Court Bay and Chuhe in time to save the anti-tank mines and citizens. High Command has indicated that this is of course no fault of the Helldivers, who we agree definitely directed all resources and efforts to save those citizens, and nothing else. Just hours later, in an emergency broadcast by High Command, orders were given to halt all ongoing battles on both fronts, as shockingly, Terminated outbreaks have erupted on the barrier planets. On Meridia, Terminid reproduction rates have seemingly exploded overnight by 2,000%. It seems as though somehow the termicide has caused a mutation in the bugs. The lush and beautiful Meridia has now become a super colony for the bugs, and at this time is no longer accessible due to the Terminid overpopulation. It is estimated that it is only a matter of time before the other barrier planets end up like Meridia. In order to prevent further spread of these mutations caused by the termicide, High Command has issued an urgent new major order to deactivate the Terminid control systems on the remaining barrier planets. At the start of this major order, all 3 planets began at 50% completion. However, the situation was worse than we thought, and the Terminids had already established massive nests around the Terminid control systems. As a result, progress on all 3 planets was decreasing rapidly by the hour. On day 82, the majority of forces were split between Fenrir 3 and Turing. Despite the majority of Helldivers assisting with the major order, progress on all 3 planets was only decreasing throughout the majority of the day. The Terminid swarms on these planets were already growing out of control, and countless Helldivers have lost their lives in their efforts to shut down the TCS. But these sacrifices would not be in vain. In the final hours of the day, Helldivers decided to focus more on Fenrir 3 in attempts to turn around the seemingly hopeless situation on a single planet at a time. And miraculously, this seemed to work. In the early morning of day 83, as more of the TCS was being deactivated, it seemed resistance was decreasing on Fenrir 3. The Helldivers pushed this advantage, and slowly but surely, the progress of this deactivation of the TCS was rising. In the final hours of the day, this resulted in resistance being reduced even further. The TCS deactivation on Fenrir 3 has finally completed. Following this completion, Fenrir 3's liberation was at 50%. However, orders dictate that Helldivers are to continue the TCS shutdown before continuing any liberation efforts on these planets. At the start of day 86, we completed the shutdown of the TCS in Turing, and as before, the 72nd Orbital Infantry and Sneak Engineers were deployed to assist with completing the dismantling of the TCS and liberation of the planets. On prior planets, as we made progress towards shutting down the TCS, we noticed decreased Terminid resistance across the planet. However, it seemed as though Errata Prime was on the tipping point, and Terminid resistance was never decreased. This situation would be extremely dire, but once again, the Helldivers pushed to accomplish the impossible. Throughout days 86 to 88, as many as 75% of all active Helldivers focused on the shutdown of the TCS. This is an unprecedented percentage in the history of the Galactic War, the only other times with percentages this high being the original deployment of the TCS in Errata Prime, and Durgan, the last planet, in Operation Swift Disassembly. In the early hours of day 88, Errata Prime was saved, and the TCS was disabled in time, completing the major order. Hello Data Archive, the Meridia supercolony continues to pose a great threat to Super-Earth. Terminid outbreaks are erupting in nearby systems, and Helldivers across the galaxy are deploying in defense of managed democracy. Following the shutdown of the TCS on the barrier planets, High Command has shared details on the situation in Meridia. Unlike the other barrier planets, the mutations in Meridia, along with the continued exposure to the termicide, has caused the bugs to reproduce at unprecedented rates. Scientists have determined that Meridia is now infested nearly to the same level as a Terminid home planet, giving way to its official declaration as a Terminid supercolony. The Ministry of Science has ongoing investigations on how to solve the Meridia issue. As for the scientists who worked on the Terminid control systems, they've been taken into custody and are under investigation. It seems that the supercolony is producing spores that are transferring to other planets in its nearby vicinity, leading to massive outbreaks that have immediately caused us to lose control of these planets. The morning of day 98 saw the end of our ongoing major order to produce 2 billion automaton corpses for the purposes of recycling the scrap materials into MD-17 anti-tank mines. Unfortunately, we were only able to achieve 1.5 billion decommissioned bots, which falls short of the required amount to forge the Tools of Liberty. There was simply no point in doing any work at all for these mines unless we had the full 2 billion automatons decommissioned. For this reason, we have since placed all of the 1.5 billion useless scrap toasters into our galactic landfills. We will see further delay to receiving the new stratagem, but certainly it will come eventually. The government of Super-Earth has thus officially declared war on all agents of tyranny. This means that the installation of the Terminid control systems, the 54 days of bloodshed in Levelin Creek, the attempted complete eradication of the automatons, the defense against the automaton reclamation, and the shutdown of the TCS and outbreak of the Meridian supercolony were all up until this point simply special military operations. By day 101, the major order was completed, and Helldivers maintained protection of the 4 basic training facilities. This has allowed our first class of recruits to graduate with superior proficiency in rifle operation, mobility, and obedience. with the control of these training facilities is approximated to be a 25% increase to the liberation and defense contributions for all operations completed on any planet, while we still control the training facilities. This means as long as these planets are under our control, any operation completed will result in 25% more contribution to the liberation. At the start of Day 103, there were 3 new attacks in Vernon Wells, Virillia 5, and Fenrir 3. Considering the significance of our new training facilities recently commissioned in Vernon Wells, it was of utmost importance to successfully defend the automaton attack. And with the added support of the new Super Earth Armed Forces graduates right out of the training facilities, we saw the swift defense of Fenrir 3? The outbreaks caused by the Meridia supercolony continued to be stopped by the Helldivers. But of course, following this, Helldivers then redirected all forces to the defense of the training facility liberation of Pandion 24. This unfortunately cost the defense of both Vernon Wells and Virillia 5. Helldivers have reported comments that Sea volunteers hope to get deployed to the training facilities on the Terminated front, as it is more likely to be successfully defended in those regions, which is preposterous, and these individuals have been re-educated. It is obviously very rare that we lose to any automaton attacks. This pedifactory is causing devastating impact on the environment. High Command sees the true potential of this factory, which could be turned into a producer of weapons of freedom rather than war. With small alterations, we would be able to retrofit the factory to allow the construction of a dual autocannon exosuit variant, the EXO-49 Emancipator exosuit, as well as obviously having perfect working conditions and be carbon neutral. When we left off, Helldivers were primarily deploying to Virillia 5 in efforts to retake the planet and repurpose the automaton's pedifactory for righteous purposes. However, the bugs had begun an attack on Angel's Venture, the location of one of our newly built training facilities. Each training facility provides us with a 5% increased liberation and defense contribution on all operations, and if they are lost, they cannot be regained. In the past days, we have already lost the training facilities on Vernon Wells, and our enemies continue their unrelenting assault against freedom. At the start of the day, the defense was trending poorly on Angel's Venture. But with High Command's strategic update to all Helldivers to divert some forces from Virillia 5, we soon saw a split of one force to maintain the ground on Virillia 5 and another to protect the important assets on Angel's Venture. The situation on the planet was dire, the outbreak larger than any we have seen in previous weeks. But upon arrival of reinforcements from Virillia 5, the tides began to turn in our favor. In an unprecedented display of coordination, Helldivers simultaneously held the line in Virillia 5 and turned around the defense in an astounding victory in Angel's Venture, successfully defending our training facilities in the nick of time. Our new recruits rejoice in the admiration of the Helldivers, and are now safely able to continue their training and graduation. Helldivers dove with the opportunity to try out the new exosuits, and have found the new stratagem to be quite powerful on defense missions. However, many have reported an underwhelming performance of the new suits, with lower than expected damage output. This, of course, is treason. A new major order was issued by High Command, Operation Enduring Peace, Phase 1. Our scientists have been hard at work researching the best way to address the issue, and have come to a conclusion using an experimental substance called dark fluid liberated from the Illuminate in the First Galactic War. Phase 1 of this operation involves securing a route to Meridia and maintaining that route until sufficient quantities of dark fluid can be weaponized and deployed. High Command has made it very clear in this major order that this is to be our only priority, that all other territorial losses are acceptable to ensure the success of this operation. The 3 key planets to maintain control over are Turing, Fenrir 3, and Angel's Venture. Before deploying to Turing to liberate the final planet, we received a news announcement of a mishap on Moradesh. Nice. Due to an accident, casualties have been minimized, as some researchers were spaghettified by the black hole created by the dark fluid. Luckily, the crisis was averted, and I'm sure it will be fine for Helldivers when we weaponize this against the Terminids on Meridia. With the successful completion of this major order, the path to the Terminid supercolony on Meridia was cleared. The Super Destroyer fleet has been dispensed with weaponized payloads of dark fluid for the next phase of this operation. Operation Enduring Peace Phase 2 was disseminated by High Command. Time has been declared to eradicate the Terminid supercolony completely. The goal of this phase of the operation is to trigger a total planetary implosion on Meridia, destroying the supercolony and the hyper-reproductive Terminids therein. This will be achieved in small steps by our Helldiver teams who will deploy to deliver partial payloads of dark fluid across the planet, which will aggregate together into a super dense mass after sufficient dark fluid has been delivered. This super dense mass will trigger the planetary implosion. High Command has issued great urgency with this major order, where the speed of this deployment is critical. The technicians are producing dark fluid at an extremely high output, even with sleep and safety protocols being optimized for productivity. The production cannot be maintained for long. Destroying Meridia is an irreversible action, but the voting algorithm has deemed that it is a necessary evil. Helldiver's first drops onto Meridia was a sight to behold. The remnants of the TCS, and massive tunnels hollowing out the planet. The once lush and beautiful Meridia has become completely infested. The mission is to deploy dark fluid transport packs and place them into tectonic drills to dispense dark fluid into the planet. Our Helldivers have noted that the transport packs can be used as an enhanced jump pack. But as the dark fluid becomes unstable, there seems to be a side effect of sudden disappearance. Helldivers who have returned from deployments on the ground have shared that the mission is more difficult than any other we have seen before. It seems there are endless waves of bugs on the ground in Meridia. The Terminids on the supercolony are capable of breaching directly beneath our drills, making the deployment of the dark fluid very challenging. There appears to be no limits to the cheating bugs. After placing the dark fluid successfully on the planet, Helldivers have seen massive tremors that result in the release of huge swarms of filthy insects. As a result, very few Helldivers have been able to successfully extract their completed missions. At the start of Day 115, we saw progress finally beginning after nearly 2 days of combat. The Terminid resistance on the planet was falling to nearly half of what it began as. The plan was working, and further support to our forces arrived that early morning. Many Helldivers were lost on the first 2 days of the Battle of Meridia, as they were overrun by massive Terminid breaches occurring directly beneath our dark fluid deployment drills. In response, the Ministry of Science rapidly engineered upgrades to the tectonic drills, which now prevent Terminid breaches in its immediate vicinity through the use of ultrasound frequencies in the ground. Stupid bugs just hate certain sounds, so easily fooled. Additionally, homemade napalm created by patriotic citizens to support the battles in Meridia allowed all Helldivers to deploy with napalm airstrikes. The widely popular Super Earth pastime of burning bugs with napalm had every barely able-bodied citizen already very familiar with the process. These two upgrades made the mission success rate on Meridia improve significantly. As we continued to make progress, the resistance on Meridia began to decrease further. It seems the more dark fluid we pushed into the planet, the less resistance the bugs were able to push back against us. It was starting to show that all of our efforts in the past days were not in vain, and it seems the tide was finally turning in our favor on the supercolony. Only 4 hours later, our priority campaign progress doubled, further decreasing the resistance rate on the planet. Progress continued to increase rapidly, as it seemed clear the effects of our efforts was starting to affect the supercolony, leading to yet another breakthrough just under 4 hours later, further plummeting Terminid resistance on the planet. For the remainder of the day going into Day 116, Helldivers struck a critical blow, cutting the resistance rates down by over 35%. At this point, it was clear it was only a matter of time before we would succeed. For the next 5 hours, Helldivers pressed the advantage, but the bugs also seemed to push back in their final efforts to protect their hive. But Helldivers are fearless to the face of any threat to our freedom, and will always prevail in the end. By now, Helldivers have learned and adapted to the conditions on Meridia, and lacking any further underhanded tactics, the stupid bugs continued to falter. Shortly afterwards, High Command released a dispatch indicating it is as we expected. The dark fluid appears to have begun disrupting the Terminid hives, and tectonic integrity has begun to decrease. But further spore eruptions from Meridia continue to affect other systems, as another Terminid attack broke out on Fenrir 3. Evacuation orders on all nearby systems were issued. Eliminating the source was a priority, and Helldivers continued to do whatever it takes to destroy the super colony once and for all. As the critical mass of dark fluid grew ever closer, our progress continued to skyrocket, but shortly afterwards control of Turing and Akamar 4 were lost. But these planets can be recovered, and our resolve was unshaken, and less than 3 hours later, Terminid resistance was reduced entirely, and victory was in our grasp. As the final deployments of dark fluid completed, the tremors grew much more violent, and in its final moments, all super destroyers above the planet were overridden to FTL jump to Super Earth. It was over. We had won. The super colony was destroyed, never to be seen again, and replaced by a beautiful black hole. Every Terminid spore within several billion kilometers has been sucked into the black hole. Containment of the Terminids is now once again possible, and we may look forward to a future with more beautiful Terminid farms. The fall of Meridia also caused the Terminid attack in Fenrir 3 to collapse. Victory was declared on Fenrir 3 only minutes afterwards, and the fall of the planet reopened FTL lines to Estanu and Krimsica. The scientists who aided with the development of dark fluid stores have had their sleep protocols reinstated, and have been awarded the Super Citizen Medal of Freedom. The Moradesh Research Facility has been decommissioned. Any and all concerns of unforeseen consequences from the use of the dark fluid have been determined to be unfounded. This is a total victory for Super Earth. Throughout this major order on Meridia, 1.1 billion bugs were killed, and 26.7 million Helldivers gave their lives for freedom. The biggest congratulations must go to our Helldivers. Without their fearless contributions, we wouldn't be able to stand here today. Super Earth is safe again for another day. This is a historic victory for managed democracy. Thank you, Helldivers. Now that we've celebrated, the war still rages on. In the past weeks, our focus was diverted from the automaton front, and the unprovoked attacks against democracy have claimed large portions of our galaxy. But with the arrival of new major orders on day 121, the time for our returned counteroffensive against the socialist toasters has finally arrived. We have several gaps in our knowledge, such as the originating location of the invasion fleet, and the reason behind the apparent automaton focus on Cyberstan. There has been treasonous, wild speculation, but no confirmed facts. High Command has directed Helldivers to liberate... what's that?
The Wasat system.
Right, but which one?
The Wasat system.
Right, of course. The planet where they have identified a large automaton data center, codenamed Database 1. With a directive from High Command, Helldivers pivoted their deployments to focus on Wazen for the remainder of the day. Fighting on, what's that planet with Database 1 on it?
The Wasat system.
Yeah, I can't remember either. But liberations continued through into day 124. With the determination and unwavering obedience of the hard-working Helldivers, Database 1 was secured by the end of day 124. But High Command has indicated that it will take months to fully parse through all the intel stored in this database. Key intel, however, has been able to be gleaned from the database so far, which references a massive terraforming project on Cyberstan, in addition to recordings of the impact of the Terminid supercolony. Based on this information, High Command has directed that our strategic objective is therefore confirmed with Cyberstan as our target. It is also worth noting that there were some keywords referenced multiple times throughout the intel that may provide information on the bot's motives. Vessel 00, Nucleus, and the Final Collective. We asked cooperating super destroyers in the fleet to report what they think these keywords might mean. With the dawn of a new day on day 125, a new major order has been assigned. There have been requests for aid upon 2 planets. One, Vernon Wells, where we have received an emergency distress call indicating there are thousands of civilian survivors, child and otherwise, trapped in the remains of the Super Citizen Ann's Hospital for very sick children. It is a sign of true luck that these citizens have survived this long, and without immediate rescue, we expect that they will soon perish of starvation, thirst, or automaton butchery. The other planet is Marfark, where interrupted bot communications have revealed that there are large explosive repositories on the planet. There is high confidence that these are the explosives from Chuhe, and the recapture of them will result in the deployment of the MD-17 anti-tank mines. High Command has shared that Helldivers must choose democratically to save one planet first, for it is very unlikely to save both in time. Save the very sick children and secure their futures to do their part for Super Earth as soon as they turn 7, or save the explosives and make anti-tank mines that will enable us to save even more sickly children in the future. Which planet would truly bring the most freedom back to the galaxy? After approximately 2 hours, the results were in. Of the options to save the most freedom, 11% decided saving the anti-tank mines would be best, 27% decided to shoot a bug, and 61% of all Helldivers decided to save the very sick children on Vernon Wells, to secure the future of the innocents caught in the tyranny of our enemies. This was more than just a mission. It was a pledge to protect the most vulnerable, to save the lives of those who would represent the hope and future of Super Earth, a fight not for territory, but for life itself. And after the morning of day 128, Vernon Wells saw liberation. With all bot scum cleansed from the planet, our forces rapidly secured the ruins of Super Citizen Ann's and began the search through the rubble. And miraculously, the thousands of civilians trapped, including the 4,311 very sick children, were all found alive. Rescue operations began immediately to transport them all to safety, and a very special message was then sent to all Helldivers.
Dear Helldivers, thank you so much for saving us. They told us you made a lot of sacrifices to help us. We'll always be grateful. Now we can grow up to become Helldivers too. With Liber Tea, the very sick children of Super Citizen Ann's.
Excuse me. The children were all rescued and have been transported to Super Citizen Mary's hospital for tragically ill youth, thanks to the impressive feats of the Helldivers. As these tragically ill children grow old enough, they have signed an intention to enlist, and they will join the ranks of Super Earth Armed Forces to pay forward their gratitude for their rescue as soon as they become of age. The Ministry of Defense has issued each child to receive a AR-23 Liberator assault rifle upon turning 15. In addition, a crowdsourced fund will pay for the remainder of their care and military academy training. A truly momentous victory for Super Earth. With the Terminids now under control, our focus shifts back to our electronic adversaries for the next major order assigned by High Command. High Command has shared that X-45 is home to a lost advanced weapons lab from the First Galactic War. It seems the lab was developing an interplanetary battle station before evacuation was necessary, and given the now hospitable conditions, excavation of the lab has begun. The major order is to maintain control over X-45 for 6 days to ensure the plans for the battle station can be recovered and not fall into the hands or actuators of the scrap metal. And all operations in the defense of X-45 will be augmented with the Commando for the duration of the major order. Helldivers deployed in droves to X-45, drawing additional forces to try the new 100-year-old weaponry. The Commando was pivotal in the defense of X-45 and was found to be very effective at destroying critical automaton infrastructure as well as blowing up the mobile appliances. Seemingly foreseeing their defeat in X-45, the Socialist Appliances launched a new attack on Vernon Wells and Wasat Planet? I don't get why these reports aren't specific sometimes.
The Wasat system.
Yeah, I know, I'm not sure either. Anyways, Helldivers continued to focus their deployments to finish the defense of X-45, which was successful by the end of day 151. The Toasters stood no chance despite their massive assault. Following the successful defense, focus then split between Vega Bay and defending
The Wasat system.
Right. And by the morning of day 152, the defense was approaching a come-from-behind victory until the final desperate automaton attack was launched once again to X-45. Helldivers then split between the two planets until the defense was completed. Reinforcements then shifted to the defense of X-45, which at this point was barely holding the line. Our forces cut off and trapped within the Ymir sector, fought off attack after attack on X-45 in the past days. But once reinforcements arrived on X-45, the defense began to swing in our favor, and the final attack was stopped. The plans for the interplanetary battle stations were secured, another successful major order in the books. High Command has indicated, however, that it will be some time for us to see the fruits of our labor in actuality, as it will take our engineers a long time to fully complete the construction of a project of this magnitude. Helldivers now have one more reason to fight to live another day. The ongoing major order on day 158 was to liberate Acer Pass, Matar Bay, Marfark, and Martal, which would cut off automaton forces and reconnect Super-Earth territory with the Ymir sector. By the morning of day 161, Helldivers successfully cut off the automaton forces by liberating Martal. To take advantage of this opportunity, we must close in on the cut-off planets and liberate Karen Prime, so Carbol
The
7.
Charbal system.
Charbol 7, and Choa
Coapesa system.
Coapesa 4, and
The Charon
I know,
system.
Karen Prime. Helldivers obediently continued their deployments on Coapesa 4, knowing that it was coming down to the wire for the timing for this major order. The Helldivers' courage and unyielding desire to spread freedom across the galaxy has time and time again succeeded against all odds, succeeding in the liberation of Coapesa 4 with just 43 minutes remaining on the major order, less than 1% of the remaining time. At the start of day 173, the major order was a pressure advantage in the Ymir and Trigon sectors on the now isolated, illegally occupied planets. Despite the Helldivers' best efforts and valiant sacrifices, unfortunately, we were not able to liberate Wazin in time, reaching 55% liberation by the end of the major order. After several days, the continued efforts on the liberation of Wazin were finally realized. The horrors on Wazin truly give Helldivers their name. Despite not liberating the planet for the major order, brave Helldivers continued to deploy to Wazin, fighting through the fierce fire tornadoes for 3 days. Committed to finishing off the isolated automaton planets and completing the liberation of the Ymir sector, at long last, the liberation of Wazin was completed in the opening hours of day 180. It was reported that a sudden Terminid wave has overrun our outer recon post on Socorro 3. The dubious reports indicated the presence of new Terminid variants, which was ridiculous and likely unfounded. But regardless, High Command issued orders for Helldivers to deploy to Socorro 3 to eradicate as many bugs, same or never before seen, as possible. Further, an unusually large interstellar Terminid spore cloud was noted in the area. The requirements for the major order are to kill 500 million Terminids on Socorro 3 and liberate Esker and Bor Rock. As Helldivers deployed to Socorro 3, we saw exactly what we expected: new Terminid variants. We always knew and expected that this was possible, and in the face of new threats, Helldivers held the line on the largest Terminid attack ever recorded. The liberation of Bor Rock completed well ahead of time, with 5 hours to spare on the morning of day 185. Helldivers successfully completed the major order, squishing the newly discovered Terminid abominations under the boot of Liberty. Unfortunately, it seems the giant spore cloud is becoming increasingly emergent as its rapid growth continues by the day. This unnatural tyrannical phenomenon has been named the Gloom, and it covers several star systems. The Gloom continues to spread rapidly, and new orders arrive for Helldivers to obtain samples of Terminid organic matter from planets closest to the Gloom. In the hours following, Helldivers first focused on Crimsica until later in the evening, there was a strange development in the progress of the major order. Suddenly, on
The
Nivel...
Nivel system.
doesn't matter. Over 44 million common samples were recorded in just 1 minute, and just over 1 hour later, another 8 million were recorded on Crimsica. High Command immediately shut down the major order, and we were left to wait for further details. New intel was received that morning regarding the incident on the previous day. Medals were awarded to all honorable Helldivers, but those who submitted millions of false samples have had their pet fish summarily executed. The false samples have significantly decreased our expected scientific advances, and our countermeasures against the Gloom will be delayed. The successful defense of Esker will begin an unprecedented super-Earth defensive shutout. Helldivers spread out across each defense, while a majority focus on first finishing the liberation of Akamar 4. With Akamar done, this allowed the focus to shift to Astanu. The countless number of successful defenses of the planet goes up once again, with another victory in the opening minutes of Day 202. Moving on to the next, and all the requirements for the major order already fulfilled, Helldivers swung back to defense on Socorro 3, initially trailing by 25% to declaring victory by over 15%. We have clearly succeeded in slowing the spread of the gloom by causing the Terminids to cower in their bug holes in fear of the Helldivers. We will squash this cloud-based terror, whether we discover what it is or not. And just a few minutes later, just as we expected, the gloom proceeded to spread further, enveloping many planets, and yet another Terminid attack on Errata Prime. Approximately 77 days prior, Helldivers had previously liberated a Galactic War I era blueprint for an interplanetary battle station while on planet X-45. And High Command was excited to share with us that the construction of this Democracy space station is finally ready to begin. It will be a multi-stage process for its construction, and the Helldivers will play a critical role. Once a Democracy space station, DSS, is completed though, it will provide an amazing tool of democracy for Helldivers to reshape the Galactic War. The major order is to liberate one of these two planets. But shortly after the major order announcement, new attacks reach Akamar 4 and Claurel. However, securing the construction site for the DSS was the highest priority, and any additional losses and exploded civilian homes were deemed acceptable. Hence, democracy took over, and it was found that overwhelmingly, Yelavar was chosen. Despite its misleading spelling to some, it is clearly a beautiful jungle planet, most fitting for the DSS. But Yelavar remained the main focus, as Helldivers dreamed of how much more democracy could be spread with the DSS. Not giving a single moment to let up on any of our progress, Helldivers continued to make the final push, and after nearly 4 days of endless deployments to the planet, the construction site for the Democracy space station was finally secured. With Yelavar liberated, a DSS logistics hub has been set up nearby on the planet Tarsh to support the construction efforts. High Command has indicated that future advancements are necessary in 3 key areas: Zero-G material science, FTL propulsion, and gigastructure staffing. The order chimed the bell for the first of 4 construction phases of the new DSS. The station will be a new strategic level weapon, capable of aiding in the liberation of its orbited planet. Helldivers will be able to vote democratically to determine where to deploy it and use its capabilities. The first construction stage embarks on a new scientific breakthrough to establish a new state-of-the-art something center, wherein we will prototype and develop a new high-efficiency Alcubierre drive, which will be capable of transporting gigastructures like the DSS. The ideal grounds for this center is on Turing, and Helldivers have been ordered to clear the planet of all terminid lifeforms to make room for new infrastructure. With just 1 day remaining on the major order, the insects broke out once again and attacked Turing, with the terminid spores originating through Akamar 4. A very familiar situation with Akamar 4 at 81% of its liberation. The Helldivers had once again another opportunity for a gambit to shut down the attack on Turing. However, very confident in their ability to shut down the Terminids, Helldivers instead decided to have some fun with it, knowing they would win regardless against these non-thinkers. A competition was held instead of who could do it faster, defend Turing or liberate Akamar. It was a very close match, but the Helldivers on Turing were able to successfully complete the defense before those on Akamar 4, and Akamar 4 completed only 49 minutes later. And by the morning of the next day, the major order was successful. The Helldivers have stopped the Terminid's numerous attempts to prevent the construction of the new Xenoentomology Center. But as a reminder, the next step is to construct a deep mantle forge complex. This forge uses the extreme heat and pressure near a planet's core to create a powerful alloy that can withstand the acceleration of the immense DSS warp speeds. It appears our electronic enemies are engaging in deep mantle mining operations on Claurel, and it would be prudent to reappropriate these facilities for freedom and the construction of the Deep Mantle Forge. thus we will simultaneously construct our forge and deny the automatons their high-cost mine. However, with the Deep Mantle Forge so close within our grasp, Helldivers continued to press the attack, and before the end of day 243, Clowrell was liberated, completing the major order. An extensive network of tunnels penetrating deep into the depths of Clowrell have been flushed out of all bot presence, and have now been filled with super-Earth miners to construct the Deep Mantle Forge complex. A brand new alloy will be crafted to enable the DSS to safely withstand FTL jumps. Though troubling intel was also received that the automatons seem to also be crafting a new alloy of their own, seemingly for some kind of armor plating, but investigations are ongoing. When two new automaton attacks reach Vernon Wells and Clowrell, followed by new orders by High Command. It seems the automatons have refused our peaceful and righteous liberation of Clowrell, and seek to steal the planet that so many Helldivers gave their lives to liberate. But our non-sentient enemies are incapable of learning from their past mistakes. Unable to accept the peaceful and righteous liberation of their forge, the electronic idiots attack Clowrell yet again, expecting a different result. Helldivers deployed to Clowrell to stop this desperate, unprovoked attack to take Super Earth's hard-earned forge. The sacrifices made by Helldivers in the past week to secure this key infrastructure for managed democracy would not go to waste. By the start of day 246, just like their previous pathetic attempts, the attack was easily destroyed. Clowrell has held, and the Deep Mantle Forge complex has been completed. And with this victory, the DSS has reached a new stage in development over Yelavar. Our research for the high-efficiency Alcubierre drives on Turing is progressing well. However, there is currently a bottleneck on the number of Terminid specimens available. The Democracy Space Station will require a significant increase in our E710 requirements, hence High Command has ordered the establishment of the Terminid Research Reserve on Akamar 4. The Research Reserve will seed Terminids inside tightly controlled areas on Akamar 4. Terminids will of course be allowed to develop naturally, but will be kept in check by a spacious network of electrified fences. We aboard the Defender of Freedom are always thrilled to see progress on developments of Terminid agriculture. The major order is to establish a quarantine zone surrounding Akamar 4 in order to establish the Quarantine Research Reserve in Darius 2. Shortly following the receipt of new orders, new bug outbreaks occurred on Akkord 3 and Trandor. However, focus on the targets for the major order, Helldivers primarily deployed to Pandion 24. While securing the planets around Akamar 4 is our top priority, losing the defense on Akkord 3 would give the opportunity for the Terminids to attack our lab on Turing. Helldivers attempted to rally to have more super destroyers deployed for the cause, and by the end of the day, a shift of 10% of all Helldiver forces began supporting the defense. But even at this point, the defense was 13% behind, and it seemed very unlikely that this defense could be saved. But going into day 247, an unprecedented shift to a planet not explicitly listed in the major order was beginning to make the defense seem possible. And with just 14 minutes remaining on the defense, Helldivers retook the lead with less than 1% remaining for both sides. And in the closest defense that we have ever recorded aboard the Defender of Freedom, Helldivers accomplished the miracle of Akkord 3, completely shutting down the opportunity for a threat to our xenoentomology lab. With all 5 planets secured, the majority of Helldivers then deployed to Estanu and Fact Bay for the remainder of the day, into day 253 when the major order was completed and the Terminid Research Reserve was secured. Helldivers have secured the surrounding planets of Akamar 4 for the Terminid Research Reserve, and xenoentomologists have already yielded results towards improved understanding of E710 extraction and exploitation. We have learned from our past experiences from the Terminid farms of yesterday, and have significantly upped the defenses of the reserve, encircling the perimeter with electrical fencing, and auto-triggering nuclear bombardments. But the most exciting part of the reserve is a section allocated as a petting zoo, Tyranny Park. Adventurous and well-paying citizens will be able to observe the Terminids in their habitat, helping to fund future research and understanding of the horrors of tyranny. That there appeared to be a significant automaton force building on Chuhe. Later it was identified that this was a new automaton detachment launching an automaton attack larger than we have ever seen on Matar Bay. High Command alerted all Helldiver superdestroyers immediately, indicating the augmented automaton detachment is referred to as the Jet Brigade, containing groupings of upgraded jump pack bots. By the time the alert reached superdestroyers, multiple SEAF bases had already fallen in Matar Bay. Helldivers must stop this Jet Brigade, or we risk the discovery of the logistics hub, the Deep Metal Forge complex, or the DSS itself. This emergency major order urges Helldivers to deploy to the defense of Matar Bay, and ultimately, in the defense of the DSS. Helldivers were advised that every socialist toaster decommissioned will weaken the strength of their next advance. The major order is to destroy the automaton Jet Brigade before it can discover the location of the DSS, or its substations. Helldivers deployed immediately to shut down the so-called Jet Brigade. Equipped with horrifically reverse-engineered Helldiver jump packs, these upgraded bots could quickly swarm Helldivers. The size of the invasion force was unlike anything we have seen before from the automatons. The efforts to hold off the attack on Matar Bay continued through into the next day, and by the morning, although the attack could not be held off, the automatons also suffered heavy losses in their first strike, losing nearly half of their invading force. And instead of attacking again right away, the cowardly automatons took time to replenish their forces. And by the evening, a new attack reached Martal. This attack only 3/4 the size of the original. Diving to the frigid Martal, our Helldivers by now quickly realized that jumping toasters simply meant there were more predictable targets to shoot at. This time prepared for the invasion, Helldivers deployed cooperative tactics to shoot down countless automaton dropships, causing tremendously high decommission rates from just a pair of Helldivers. Helldivers destroyed a significant amount of the Jet Brigade, crushing well over half of the forces on Martal. However, the defense was still unable to hold, the ever-obedient Helldivers giving their lives to open the opportunity in the future to finally shut down this attack force. Now having lost nearly 3/4 of their initial invading strength and nowhere near our assets, the Regret Brigade, desperate to find the DSS, attacked Marfark just 6 hours later. Initially, it seemed that the defense would not hold, but throughout the day, more and more support arrived on Marfark, which slowly inched back the defense in our favor. Helldivers made a stand that this would be as far as the Jet Brigade would go. All of those lost in their path of tyranny would not go to waste. As time went on throughout day 256, support continued to arrive on Marfark, and by the end of the day, with just over 1 hour remaining on the defense progress has exceeded the attack, and with nearly 75% of our active superdestroyers deployed all to Marfark, those Marfarkan bots couldn't process what hit them. The Forget Brigade was shut down, and easily no longer in our memories. Many planets were ravaged in their path of destruction, Matar Bay, others. Though these efforts were not in vain, the electronic idiot's attempts yielded nothing, and the location of the DSS and its assets remained safe. But day 261 heralded the bells for celebration of Liberty Day. Liberty Day celebrates the founding of managed democracy. Today, it is celebrated with gifts from the pyre, watching of the lunar bombardment, and the re-swearing of the Oath of Citizenship. Thus, the only major order for the day for all Helldivers is to cherish liberty with all of your heart. Thus, Helldivers were free to liberate the galaxy as they pleased. All Helldivers were also issued a DP-0 tactical armor, Helldiver armor from the First Galactic War. In addition, the R2124 Constitution, a rifle traditionally gifted to every citizen upon turning 16. And with that, Liberty Day came to a close. Super Earth shines brightly as a beacon of managed democracy across the galaxy, as it always has, and as it always will. It also seems the Terminated population inside the preserve has grown exponentially, but I'm sure there is absolutely nothing to be worried about, especially Tyranny Park. In addition, an intel advisory was shared by High Command, indicating imminent Terminated attacks on Gloom-adjacent planets. And surely enough, on the morning of day 270, Terminated attacks occurred on Socorro 3 and Esker, when we then received a new major order from High Command. Our Democracy space station is currently in its 3rd construction phase and is nearing completion. This democratic behemoth requires 1.3 million skilled workers to be relocated to the DSS. Ever-patriotic Super Earth citizens are more than eager to serve, but will require a significant relocation effort. And it seems that the most eager to serve correspond with colonists on planets affected by recent bug attacks on the Gloom border. The major order is to defend against 8 Terminid attacks in 6 days, while maintaining control over Sirius, Tarek, and Angel's Venture, with the sides seemingly frustrated by their inability to comprehend absolutely anything. 2 massive Terminid outbreaks occurred on Astanu and Crimsica. Progress on the defenses went through the night into the next day, and once again, Astanu was successfully defended. This left Crimsica with only 6.5 hours left to defend, and the defense was over 28% behind. Reinforcements from Astanu rushed to Crimsica and successfully completed the defense with only 36 minutes remaining. Now with only 1 defense remaining, a single Terminid attack broke out on Boar Rock, defending the final required planet to ensure the DSS will be sufficiently staffed. Helldivers once again easily squished the bug attack, successfully completing the requirements for the major order. Helldivers have successfully evacuated citizens of all ages to the DSS. These evacuees now all have generous contracts and are attending accelerated boot camps in orbital weapons handling. Now with the DSS fully staffed, there is but one final phase. Activating the DSS will require filling its 20-story reusable fuel tanks with E710. And new orders arrive for the final phase of the DSS the next morning. The time has finally come to activate the DSS. The sole remaining step will be to obtain enough E710 to power its state-of-the-art high-efficiency Alcubierre drives. However, haste will be critical. The rebuilt automaton Jet Brigade has been spotted once again on Vernon Wells, and the attack on the DSS logistics hub on Tarsh is likely imminent. And once online, the DSS will immediately connect to every Helldiver super destroyer from the Galactic maps. This is it, Helldivers. We must not allow our enemies to stop all of our efforts up until this point. Terminate 500 million Terminids to harness the energy to activate the DSS. But it was also a race against time, to complete our mission while slowing down the automaton Jet Brigade before they could strike and annihilate our efforts. Thus Helldivers were forced to split, half defending Tarsh and the other half battling on the Terminid front. But then came an unforeseeable tragedy at the Terminid Research Preserve on Akamar 4. From deep beneath Tyranny Park, a massive Terminid hive emerged, slaughtering well-paying citizens and staff in a sudden, merciless assault. I had my tickets to go the following week, freedom-hating bugs. This outbreak spread to the surrounding planets including Turing, causing a threat to the Xenoentomology Center. Although the option for a Penta-Gambit on Akamar 4 was possible, Helldivers instead chose to ensure the safety of Turing. Meanwhile, on the automaton front, Tarsh was lost, but over 25% of the Jet Brigade was destroyed. With the automatons taking time to mobilize another attack towards Yelavar, the Helldivers seized the opportunity to reinforce Turing. But just as Day 279 started, the Jet Brigade attacked Mastia. Caught between 2 critical defenses, Helldivers divided their strength, holding out until Turing was successfully secured several hours later. But this victory left no time to protect the other vulnerable planets, and one by one, all 4 fell to the Terminids. Attention then shifted to Mastia and Akamar 4, where Helldivers scrambled to secure the vital remaining E710 needed to power up the DSS. And thanks to the timely arrival of Seaf reinforcements arriving from the freshly liberated Lasoth, Helldivers had achieved the impossible. The DSS was online, ready to turn the tide. Voting commenced immediately on where to send the DSS, and with the Mastia attack nearly over, Helldivers could vote to keep the DSS on Yelavar, to be prepared when the Jet Brigade would attack. And of course with this in mind, the winning vote was to place it on
The Mastia system.
While using the DSS against the Jet Brigade was a great option, Helldivers had better plans. The defense of Mastia was lost, and several hours later, the Jet Brigade attacked Yelavar to destroy the DSS. But in the strategic brilliance of the Helldivers, the Jet Brigade can't destroy the DSS if it's not even there. Just as the Helldivers planned, the DSS warped to Mastia, and High Command released a dispatch indicating the opportunity for a gambit on Mastia. And just minutes after deploying, the DSS activated its planetary bombardment, absolutely devastating the bots and more Helldivers than expected. The fresh out of boot camp refugees from planets bordering the gloom appear to still be working out their accuracy, causing just slightly higher than expected Helldiver casualties. High Command responded by providing additional budget for Helldivers to all super destroyers in the fleet, as well as shield generator relays to provide increased protection from the planetary bombardment. Efforts remained primarily on Mastia with the DSS throughout the day, and things were looking very positive, with Mastia nearly liberated to shut down the Jet Brigade. And it was time once again to move the DSS, and with the liberation of Mastia so close, the Helldivers chose to send the DSS to
The Yelavar system.
Though it would seem sending the DSS away from the planet that would complete the gambit would be counterproductive. This would be severely underestimating the strategic brilliance of the Helldivers. The DSS activated its Eagle Storm, halting all progress on the Jet Brigade's attack for 24 hours, giving plenty of time to complete the gambit on Mastia. Huh? What? They went to Yelavar? They received 2 dispatches explaining the situation. Eager to witness the power of the Eagle Storm with their own eyes, Helldivers abandoned the gambit on Mastia and seized the opportunity to simply bring the defense all the way back over the course of the next day. With the Eagle Storm soaring overhead, Helldivers enjoyed unmatched air superiority. The relentless strafing runs tore through the ranks of the Jet Brigade, leaving nothing but devastation in their wake. Helldivers continued to push, and ever so slowly, the defense was coming back to even, and the DSS was ready to... Wait, where'd it go? Where's the DSS? With the DSS sent to the other side of the Galactic War to activate the orbital blockade, support of the defense of Yelavar was slowly lost, and we were unable to destroy the Jet Brigade or liberate Mastia. This was then followed by a briefing from High Command. After days of fighting, Yelavar has fallen. However, thanks to the genius maneuvering of the Helldivers, the DSS is safely out of reach. Helldivers displayed undeniable tactical brilliance, proving they are the galaxy's most elite fighting force. Many citizens are rescued in the Helldivers' efforts on Yelavar, but the Jet Brigade remains a significant threat, and the shocking outbreak from Tyranny Park is still ongoing. Thus seizing the opportunity once again for a gambit defense by liberating Yelavar, the Helldivers unfortunately just fell short of accomplishing the gambit. However, as expected, all was according to the Helldivers' plan. Yelavar was still liberated several hours later, and now the Socialist Toaster Brigade found themselves cornered with no escape. With their reinforcements limited while trapped, High Command seized the opportunity created by the Helldivers, and authorized autocannons to all Helldivers deploying to the planet. Helldivers dropped to Ember immediately to finish off the Jet Brigade, voting to move the DSS to the planet by the end of the day. Though no tactical actions were available by the DSS, it was a beacon for Helldivers to support the cause. Thus, with the expert actions of the Helldivers, Ember was successfully liberated, and the Jet Brigade was destroyed once again. Following Ember's liberation, Helldivers decided to liberate Crimsica next, and through democracy, the DSS was also directed there that evening, activating the orbital blockade, locking down Terminid spores leaving the planet, as well as diverting excess manpower to Super Destroyer logistical support, thus activating Hellpod space optimization for all Super Destroyers deployed to the planet. This bolstered Helldiver deployment and accelerated progress of the liberation campaign throughout the night into the next day. But as Crimsica was near liberation, a massive automaton attack was launched on the south from every adjacent planet. Focus remained on Crimsica to complete the liberation. In the past days, a small fleet of Helldiver super destroyers have ever so slowly been liberating Garharan. Deciding the attack on the south would not be worthwhile to defend for now, Helldivers voted to support this valiant effort on Garharan by sending the DSS to the planet to bring attention to the rest of the fleet. The effects are very clear. The DSS, with the tactical action activated or not, is a means to direct the majority of the fleet. Throughout the major order, Helldivers were able to rout the Jet Brigade on Ember, though their rebuilding looms. The DSS, especially under the intelligent direction of democracy, has proven to be an undeniable non-zero utility. While the Jet Brigade's campaign of terror is long over, the threat of further destruction remains, as long as the factories that produce them are still out there. Decryption of the automaton database intel we had liberated from Atar Bay indicates that the Jet Brigade staging ground was, Alright, come on, we can do this. Just think.
Kui or is it Chewie?
Alright, so Koa Pesa4, Charbo 7,
this one's
Karen Prime.
And,
Nobody, it could be anything.
Today's Tuesday.
At some point they finally labeled this plan properly.
It's gotta be Chewie, right? It's Chewie.
Alright. Intel from the database indicated that the staging ground was on Chewie.
The Chuha system.
Oh, come on, Chewie? And thanks to warp links established the day prior, Helldivers were already making progress. But with only 1.5 days remaining to secure the staging ground, the clock was ticking. But further assistance arrived from High Command later that morning. The Helldivers' swift disassembly of 150 million automatons earlier in the week caused a resource surplus, allowing the authorization of the orbital rail cannon strike for the rest of the order. Unfortunately, Chuha was on a choice for voting for the DSS, and it cannot be moved to assist the liberation. Instead, Helldivers moved it to the closest planet, Court Bay. Funding for the planetary bombardment was very plentiful, and proceeded on schedule on Court Bay. Chuha was a formidable stronghold for the automatons. Every inch gained by the Helldivers came at a steep cost. But liberating Chuha would mark a historic moment, the first time reclaiming the planet since its fall during the Reclamation on April 8th. Through the night, Helldivers pressed forward, knowing that each hard-fought victory may bring them closer and closer to turning the tide in this critical campaign. Unfortunately, without the assistance of the planetary barrage, Chuha was not liberated in time, failing the major order. Although the Helldivers demonstrated a commendable blood and/or oil lust, the Jet Brigade staging ground could not be claimed in time. The planet proved to be too entrenched in automaton territory, and the secrets have likely been scrubbed from any servers and databases by now. But the 89 million memory drives recovered by the Helldivers are being uploaded to the bot husks in safe possession, and each will be interrogated thoroughly. Though it might take some time, we will surely obtain this data. Defender of Freedom, uploading data log for days 303 to 309 of the Second Galactic War. Data Archive, we are currently on emergency orders. We will try to keep things brief as if Freedom is calling for its defense. A new threat to manage democracy has arrived, and all units have been ordered to LibCon 1. The Illuminate have returned. Morning, and focus remained on Gatria, when suddenly, the major order was called off. LibCon 1, the planet Calypso, was under attack by the Illuminate. Simultaneously, the DSS was taken offline following a series of catastrophic failures. Helldivers deployed immediately to defend our citizens, only to uncover the true horrors of this Illuminate attack. Their insidious tactics did not stop at just taking lives and homes. They reached much deeper, stealing their minds and their freedom itself, turning our citizens into unwilling soldiers to fight in their war, reduced to nothing but voteless. In their darkest hour, the Helldivers stood tall, freeing them from the torment of subjugation and restoring their right to permanently not oppose Super-Earth. The shameful surprise attack primarily targeted populated areas. They were intent on maximizing the theft of voting rights. And for a brief moment, it seemed as though all hope might be lost. The attack was the largest defense campaign ever seen in this war. But within hours of the emergency order, thousands upon thousands of super-destroyers answered the call. With an unwavering dedication to defend managed democracy, hundreds of thousands of super-destroyers filled the skies, showing the squids the unmatched power of managed democracy. Their foolish attempts to confuse and outsmart the most brilliant tactical minds in the galaxy. After 1.5 days, Helldivers maintained against the Illuminate invasion, trending to succeed just in time. Though some sacrifices needed to be made, we are still on pace to exceed this defense. That is all, Data Archive. Every second counts here. The Defender of Freedom is deploying Helldivers to Calypso. At the start of the day, we were over 2 days into defending a surprise attack from the Illuminate. Against all odds, Helldivers were on pace to successfully defend the single largest attack ever seen in this war, ahead of the pace required by approximately 1%. However, through the early morning, our pace seemed to slow down significantly, and by 900 hours, the balance started to shift in favor of the squids. But with only 12 hours remaining, Helldivers could not afford to fall further behind.
Our boneless enemies continued to press the advantage, intent on slipping further ahead. Over the next 6 hours, the gap only widened. It seemed as though we were not going to hold. But the ever-obedient Helldivers did not falter. All the efforts of the past days would not go to waste. In a miraculous effort, within 4 hours, the Helldivers fought their way back to nearly even, with only 1.5 hours remaining on the defense. And as the final minutes counted down, it became much more clear. The Helldivers had come out on top, defending the single largest attack ever seen in this war, setting the Illuminate retreating, defeated in their own surprise attack. Though Calypso has been left in ruins with many civilians missing, the Helldivers have once again proved that they are the galaxy's most elite fighting force. Further good news followed as the AM Factory Hub has completed, and production of the FRVs is scheduled to begin within days. New orders then followed from High Command. All Helldivers are ordered to converge on Genesis Prime and eradicate the remnants of this threat. The Ministry of Truth has assessed that their numbers are limited, and this is an opportunity to eradicate the xenophobic threat for good. Abandoning the prior defenses for this opportunity, Helldivers dove to finish off the Illuminate, with this pathetic attack being all that remained. Well, it was obvious that this was an ongoing wave of attacks from a clearly no longer eradicated species. High Command adjusted the major order to defend against 7 Illuminate attacks, and further adjustments to the major order will be made dynamically. Thus Helldivers split between the invasion on Mog and Genesis Prime. By the end of the day, focusing our efforts on the Illuminate costed both the defenses of Shelt and Garharan. And with Helldivers spread thin across 2 defenses, the defense of Genesis Prime did not hold. However, it seems the squids still retreated from the Helldivers, as we still maintained control over the planet. And several hours later, yet another invasion began on Bellatrix. While we were unable to recover the defense on Mog, the squids still retreated from the planet yet again. Helldivers then began to turn the tide, reinforcing Bellatrix and completing the defense 6 hours later. But immediately after the defense completed, 2 new invasions began on Kurth Secundus and Valmox. As the defense of both planets progressed, our analysts were able to determine with a high degree of certainty that New Stockholm will be the next target from the Illuminate. Ensuring we are prepared for this upcoming attack, Helldivers fended off the attack on Kurth about 4 hours later. With only 5 hours to turn around the defense on Valmox, reinforcements arrived from Kurth through the night into the next day, finishing the defense with only 11 minutes to spare. With both invasions now shut down, Helldivers awaited the next attack, which came exactly as expected on New Stockholm. On Andar and Acumen's Prime. We knew that, right. The analysis methodology used to determine attack patterns is currently being reviewed until further notice. In addition, High Command has temporarily authorized the early deployment of the experimental STA-3X WASP launcher. Leveraging a new stratagem, Andar was defended within 12 hours, but this came at the cost of Acumen's. Though it seems the squids still just ran off once again. And like clockwork, another invasion began on Hadar shortly afterward. What?
The Hadar system.
Oh, come on, we almost got through.
The Hadar system.
Alright, Hadar was attacked, and shortly afterwards, a terminate outbreak also occurred on Fenrir 3. Helldivers primarily focused on Hadar to hold off the Illuminate invasion, but news was then received about the Meridian Black Hole. Though it seems to look quite different than before, High Command is aware of the situation, and it is being closely monitored by black hole experts. Roughly an hour later, an Illuminate invasion landed on Ahernar Secundus, a planet, on the Terminid front. Seemingly intent on eliminating any fun in the galaxy, the squids targeted our factory hub to shut down the production of the FRV. Thus Helldivers rushed to the defense of the factory hub to save this new stratagem. And save the citizens also, of course. Over the next 7 hours, hundreds of thousands of super-destroyers deployed in the defense of the factory hub. The Helldivers easily shut down the squid's invasion, and most importantly, secured the continued production of the FRVs. And the citizens, of course. With only one more defense required to complete the major order, Helldivers dove to the defense of these planets, ultimately focusing on the defense of the acidic Skosh to complete the major order. Though yet another terminate outbreak occurred on Errata Prime, we were able to secure Skosh in time to complete the major order. It is clear that the Illuminate have returned in force to menace freedom once again. However, their wave of attacks was shut down by the Helldivers, champions of the First Galactic War. There can now be no denying the Illuminate threat, whose intentions remain shrouded in mystery. But whatever it is the Squids are planning, the Helldivers will be prepared, because the Helldivers are more intelligent. Super-Earth astronomers have reported fluctuations in the event horizon in the vicinity of the Meridian Singularity. The Terminid supercolony on Meridia was collapsed into a black hole using dark fluid, an Illuminate substance. With these recent changes coming so shortly following the reappearance of the Illuminate, this may indicate a deeper connection, and just as we always expected, this may be no ordinary black hole. But to further investigate the singularity, Helldivers must clear Fenrir 3 and nearby planets of Terminid infestation to construct a new center of science on Fenrir 3. The major order is to secure and maintain control over Rata Prime and Fenrir 3 after 3.5 days. The Center of Science has been successfully constructed on Fenrir 3, and top astrophysicists from the Ministry of Science have begun close study of the Meridian Singularity. And already it has been discovered that the Singularity is not a typical black hole as some uninformed may have believed. It is in fact the first observed instance of a wormhole, a tunnel in space-time connecting two disparate points in space. And much more will be investigated. And minutes afterwards, new orders were received from High Command. Today, Super-Earth citizens observe a special holiday, the Festival of Reckoning. A 3-day festival that uses a specially allocated Reckoning Fund to supply Helldivers with a bounty of weaponry in order to avenge all the loved ones lost this year. And as the death tolls rise, citizens can take advantage of greater savings on consumer goods. And throughout the first day, incendiary stratagems were given to all Helldivers, including the orbital napalm barrage and the incendiary mines. In addition, the Spirit of Reckoning has left a present for all Helldivers, the Stahl X-3 Wasp launcher stratagem. For the remainder of the day, the defensive Boy Rock and SO Prime was lost, along with a new invasion on Rasp. But Shelt was finally liberated on the Automaton front. The next morning, High Command shared that all Helldivers are invited to join in on the classic holiday carol, Here They Come A-Reckonin'.
Here they come a-reckoning, justice just we serve, flowers grow at the flow, peace on super.
Throughout the next day, Miriam was attacked, Rasp could not be defended, and another attack began on Canopus. However, this marked the second day of the festival, giving Helldivers a bounty of explosive weaponry, including 500 kg bombs and rocket pods. Throughout the next day, Illuminate invasions on Miriam, Canopus, and Hez Bay could not be defended in time, and new attacks reached Asoth and Cade.
The Kite system.
And this began the final day of the festival, a fitting finale giving Helldivers all manner of weaponry, including orbital lasers and Patriot exosuits. Through the third day, further Illuminate invasions continued to bring death and destruction to families simply seeking to observe the Festival of Reckoning. A Squid invasion reached Joheim, oddly close to the Automaton front. But through the remainder of the day, Helldivers were not able to complete the defenses of Keed or Lasoth before the major order concluded. The death tolls were in, and throughout the Festival of Reckoning, Helldivers decommissioned over 483 million automatons, squished 576 million Terminids, and 966 million voteless or Illuminate, totaling a reduction of over 2 billion enemies of freedom. The Spirit of Reckoning has truly completed its intergalactic voyage, granting deep discounts to be capitalized on, and avenging the memory of those lost this year.